Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Today we are going to learn about the physiology of stomach. Stomach is the enlarged J-shaped structure of the alimentary canal that is responsible for the major portion of digestion of food. In the previous lecture, we have learned about the oral cavity, the physiology of oral cavity. You can focus on this video. In the oral cavity, some of the initial digestion of food occur. After the initial digestion of food in the oral cavity, the food is transferred. And here in the video, you can see that now this man is chewing the food. After chewing the saliva, then during chewing the saliva is mixed, and after chewing, this food is transferred in the form of bolus to the pharynx. From the pharynx, it is transferred to the esophagus, and from the esophagus, this is going to be transferred to the digestive main part of digestive system, that is stomach. In the stomach, you can see, to know about the stomach, we will focus on our own diagrams. Now focus on this diagram. In this diagram, you can see a man. In this diagram, you can see the stomach, where the stomach is located. So you can see that the abdominal portion of this man is divided into 9 main parts. 9 main parts, and the stomach is present in these 3 regions: this one, and this one. So this region, this is left side and this is right side. This region is called left hypochondriac region. This is called left hypochondriac region. This part is called epigastric region. This part is called right hypochondriac region. In the hypochondriac region, you can see hypo mean below, and chondriac mean basically mean chondriology. Chondriac mean the diaphragm. The study of diaphragm is called chondriology. So the hypochondriac mean below the diaphragm. This region is on the left side of below the diaphragm. That is why this is called left hypochondriac region. This region is on the below the diaphragm on the right side. That is why this is called right hypochondriac region. This portion is called, this quadrant or this portion is called epigastric region, because this is major portion of this region is above the above the gastric, above the stomach. This region is called left flank, and this is called right flank, left and right flank. Left flank and right flank, and between the left flank and right flank there is this region. This region is called epigastric. This region is called umbilical region. This is umbilical region. This region is called left iliac region, and this is right iliac region. In the right iliac region, there is the appendix formiform occur over here. This is right iliac region, this is left iliac region, and this is hypogastric region. This is hypogastric region, this is left iliac region, and this is right iliac region. So we will focus on these 3 quadrants: this quadrant, this quadrant, and this compartment, this compartment, and this compartment. These 3 compartments, this is called left hypochondriac region, epigastric region, and umbilical region. So if someone asks you that where is the stomach located, you will tell simply that the stomach is located in the abdominal cavity. This is the abdominal cavity. This is the abdominal cavity. Below abdominal cavity always exists below the diaphragm. So the stomach is located in the abdominal cavity. Then where the in the abdominal cavity stomach is located? In the abdominal cavity stomach is located in the left hypochondric region, in the epigastric region, and the umbilical region. These three region combinedly in these three region combinedly the stomach is present. Some part of the stomach is present in this portion, some part of is present in this portion, because this is an elongated structure. This is enlarged structure of the alimentary canal. That is why this is present in these three regions. So coming toward the next diagram, and this is just the anatomical diagram of the stomach. In this diagram you can see that this is a J-shaped or belly-shaped structure. This is a J-shaped or bean-shaped structure. This is just like bean or just like J. In this diagram you can also see this curvature and this curvature. This curvature, this side, the right side, the curve on the right side, this side is called Lisser curvature. Lisser curvature. Lisser curvature is always on the right side, and this is always concave. This is concave in structure. This is greater curvature. You can see the curve is greater. This side of the stomach is called greater curvature, and this is always convex. Greater curvature, and this is always convex. Now this region of the stomach, is called, up to this region, up to this boundary, this is called fundus. Fundus is responsible for it actually accommodates the gases which are present inside the stomach. The fundus is responsible for the accommodation of gases. So this is responsible for the accommodation of gases inside the stomach. According to Islamic belief, the stomach consists of three main parts. According to Islamic belief, not medical belief, the stomach is basically composed of three main parts. The one part is responsible for the accommodation of food, the second part is responsible for the accommodation of water, and the third part is responsible for the accommodation of gases. This is according to Islamic belief, and as for the medical science, the stomach is composed of this region is composed of fundus. This region is called fundus. This region, which is responsible for the accommodation of gases. This region, from fundus to this region, this whole region, this is called body of stomach. This is called body, fundus, then body, and this region, this whole region is called pylorus. Three main parts: the fundus, the pylorus, and the body. The pylorus is further divided into two main parts. This is the pylorus. The pylorus is divided in two main parts. This is the pyloric antrum, and this is the pyloric canal. Pyloric antrum, pyloric canal. So the pyloric antrum and pyloric canal combinedly make the pylorus. This part is the pyloric antrum, and this part is the pyloric canal. You can also see over here at this point and at this point. Uh, these are actually sphincters. These are sphincters. Uh, we will learn about sphincter in detail in the next lecture, but this you should learn about the sphincter. That sphincter allow one-sided flow. This is just like the wall which are present in the blood vessel. This allow one-sided flow of food through this digestive tract to this alimentary canal. So this one is called lower esophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter. Cardiac sphincter. You can also call it lower esophageal sphincter. Lower esophageal sphincter. Lower esophageal sphincter. Because this sphincter is located on the lower side of the esophagus, that is why this is called lower esophageal sphincter. This is also called cardiac sphincter because at this point the heart is located, and in the proximity of this sphincter, heart is located. That is why this is called cardiac sphincter. This portion of the stomach is also called cardia. Below the portion below this cardiac sphincter, this small portion, this is called cardia, because this portion of the stomach is located near the heart. That is why this is called cardia. You should also be clear over here that the stomach is located below the diaphragm, while the esophagus is located above the diaphragm. Diaphragm layer goes this way the diaphragm goes. So above the diaphragm the esophagus is located, and below the diaphragm you can see the stomach is located. In the lesser curvature, this side is the lesser curvature. The lesser curvature, this portion of the lesser curvature is called, this portion where the cursor is located, this portion is called incisura angularis. This is called incisura angularis. This is just an anatomical location, this incisura angularis, which basically which is used for the division of the incisura angularis is used by the physician for the division of stomach. This divide the stomach into right side and the left side. So the incisura angularis just divide the stomach in the right and left side. This is used by the physician during surgeries. So this is called incisura angularis. This is just used for the division of stomach. There is no physiological function. There is no function of this incisura angularis. This is just used to divide the stomach into right and left portion. Now coming toward this diagram. In this diagram you can see the stomach is composed of four basic layers. The outermost layer, that is black in color, this black layer, this layer is called serosa. And the next layer, this is called muscularis. This layer is called, the red layer is called muscularis. The green layer, this one, the green layer, this is called submucosa. And the last, this one, this layer, this is called mucosa. So coming toward the function of each and every one, this serosa is a fibrous layer which is responsible for the the serosa is just responsible for the protection or giving boundary to the stomach. This give boundary to the stomach, and this is responsible for protection of stomach. The second layer, this layer muscularis. Muscularis layer is actually composed of three main layer. Smooth muscle. This is made up of smooth muscle, but three types of smooth muscle. The first type of smooth muscle is this one. This is muscularis. This is the longitudinal smooth muscle. Longitudinal smooth muscle. The muscularis is made up of longitudinal smooth muscle. Then the this one. After the longitudinal smooth muscle is present on the outer layer. In the outer layer of this smooth muscle, the longitudinal smooth muscle is present. In the middle layer, this is the transverse smooth muscle. Transverse smooth muscle. And the third one, the innermost, this one, which is present obliquely. This is called oblique smooth muscle. Oblique smooth muscle. So in all other parts of the digestive tract, in all other parts of the alimentary canal, only two types of muscles are present: the longitudinal smooth muscle and transverse smooth muscle. The oblique smooth muscle are only present in the stomach, because the stomach is responsible for the thorough mixing of food. This is responsible for the crushing of food, partial crushing of food, and thorough mixing of food. You can call it churning. The stomach is responsible for churning of food. All these churning of food. Churning is to convert the food into small particles and thoroughly mix the food. This is called churning. So when all the types of muscles in the stomach get contracted and relaxed during the contraction and relaxation of all these muscles, give three-dimensional movement to the stomach, and this three-dimensional movement of the stomach lead to the contraction. This lead to the crushing of food and thoroughly mixing of food. That is why this is called churning. So the stomach is the oblique smooth muscle are only present in the stomach, but that give the churning characteristic to the stomach. So in the next diagram, not in the next diagram, in this diagram you can see the second layer. This is the smooth muscle. This is made of smooth muscle, and the outer surface of the smooth muscle, the longitudinal smooth muscle, and the middle surface, the transverse smooth muscle, and the inner surface, the oblique smooth muscle is present. The next one is submucosa. Submucosa is responsible for the network, for the accommodation of network of capillaries, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and neuronal supply. All the neuronal supply, all the neurons, etc. Neuronal network, the blood vessels network, and the lymphatic vessel network are present in this layer. The function of this layer is also to connect these two layer with to connect this layer with this layer. This is the connection. This make the connection between these two layers, between the mucosa and the muscularis. So the submucosa is responsible for the network, for the accommodation of network of blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and the third one is the nervous network, neuronal network, or nerve fibers. The next one, this is called mucosa. Mucosa is responsible for the this is the most important layer of the stomach, and this is the innermost layer of the stomach. And this is also made up of three basic layer, but we will learn it in the next lecture. This mucosa is made up of further three layer, but we will learn about this in the next lecture. The most important thing of the mucosa is that in this layer, in the mucosal layer, the gastric glands are present. The gastric glands are present in this mucosa, and the gastric glands are actually responsible for various digestive functions of the stomach. Now, coming toward the next diagram. Okay, you can see this is the stomach, this is the pyloric, this is the cardiac sphincter, this is the pyloric sphincter, this is the inner surface of the stomach. You can see the inner surface is wrinkled. You can see that this is the inner surface of the stomach, and the inner surface of the stomach is somewhat wrinkled, and this surface is called rugi. The surface, this is actually mucosal layer, the mucosal surface. The mucosal layer surface is wrinkled, or that is not smooth. This is called rugi. This is called rugi. Rugi is actually the wrinkled surface. This is wrinkled as to give more surface to the food. Now, the wrinkled nature or the rugi nature of this stomach, the rugi gave large surface to the food for the digestion and absorption. So you can also see in the mucosal layer there are small pores. You should also note that rugi is visible by the naked eye. You can see it without any spectacle or without any aid. You can see the rugi, but you can't see these small pores. These are the small pores which are present inside on the internal surface of the stomach. This is called gastric pit. Gastric pit. So gastric pit are the small pores which are present on the surface of the mucosal layer. Small pores, which lead to the gastric gland cavity, gastric gland lumen. So the internal surface of the sorry, the internal surface of the stomach, this is called gastric lumen. The internal surface of the internal cavity, the cavity of the stomach is called gastric lumen. The surface of the gastric mucosa is composed of small pores, and these pores are called gastric pit. Each of the gastric pit leads to the gastric gland cavity. This is the gastric gland cavity. This is the gastric pit, and this gastric pit leads to the gastric gland cavity. This is gastric gland cavity. This is gastric gland cavity. This is the neck of the gastric gland cavity. This is the neck of the gastric gland cavity, and this is gastric gland cavity. At this surface, here there is stomach. This is gastric lumen, and this is gastric gland lumen. Gastric gland lumen or gastric gland cavity. So this is gastric gland lumen. The gastric pit leads to the gastric gland lumen, and the gastric glands, the gastric pit are present on the surface of gastric lumen. So the gastric gland lumen is composed of, this is gastric gland lumen, and this is gastric neck. First of all, the gastric neck. The gastric neck is made up of large number of large number of cells. Large number of cells you can see on the neck. Also on the surface, these are called mucus cells. Mucus cell. Actually, these are the modified epithelial cells of the these are the modified epithelial cells of the stomach. These are the modified epithelial cell of the stomach, that is stratified columnar. This is These are the modified epithelial cells of the stomach, and these are called mucus cells, and these produce the mucus. These are responsible for the production of mucus, and that is present on the internal surface of the stomach, and also on the in the neck of the gastric gland lumen, or the gastric gland cavity. So the gastric gland cavity or gastric gland lumen further consists of large number of this is cavity, and these large number of cells surround this cavity. The most important cells over here are two types of cell are most important. One is the parietal cell. This one is parietal cell, which is somewhat different from the other. This is also parietal cell. This is also parietal cell. So the parietal cell, chief cells. These two types of cells are very important in the gastric gland lumen or the gastric gland cavity. These are the most important cells of the parietal cell is responsible for the production of HCl. Actually, the chief cell is responsible for the production of pepsinogen, not pepsinogen. The parietal cell is responsible for the production of HCl and intrinsic factor, that is a type of glycoprotein. This parietal cell secrete this parietal cell or this parietal cell secrete the two things. One is the HCl, and the other is the peptidoglycan, a type of peptidoglycan or glycoprotein, a type of glycoprotein. That glycoprotein is called intrinsic factor, and that intrinsic factor is secreted to this lumen. From this gastric gland lumen, this goes to this neck, to the gastric lumen, and from the gastric lumen, it combines with the vitamin B12. The intrinsic factor is secreted by the parietal cell, which goes to the gastric lumen. From the gastric lumen, it goes to the intestine, and the intestine and in the gastric lumen, that combine with the vitamin B12. Actually, the vitamin B12 is not cannot be absorbed as such. This should be the vitamin B12 is always absorbed after combining with the intrinsic factor. So the absorption of vitamin B12, the intrinsic factor is very much responsible, is very much important. Sometimes the parietal cell are unable to produce the the intrinsic factor for vitamin B12 absorption. Sometimes when these parietal cell do not produce any intrinsic factor or any glycoprotein, then the vitamin B12 is not absorbed properly, and when vitamin B12 is not properly absorbed, this leads to a type of anemia that is called pernicious anemia. So the parietal cell is somewhat different from other cells. This have a small cavity over here. This small canal is present in each parietal cell. This canal is called canaliculi or canaliculus. Canaliculi is the singular and canaliculi is the plural. Canaliculi or canaliculi. Each parietal cell consists of one or more than one canaliculi or canaliculi. So the HCl and intrinsic factor is first secreted in the canaliculi, and from the canaliculi it goes to the gastric gland lumen. From the gastric gland lumen it goes to the neck. From the neck it goes to the gastric lumen, to the stomach. You can see to the stomach. So the HCl, it also secretes the HCl. It actually secretes the not as such HCl. It secretes the proton and the chlorine. The proton and chlorine combine together in the canaliculi to make the HCl, and that you can also see over here. These are the chief cell. The chief cell is responsible for the production of pepsinogen. After secretion of pepsinogen from the chief cell and after secretion of HCl from the parietal cell, this HCl combined with the pepsinogen and activate the pepsinogen, convert the pepsinogen into pepsin. Actually, you should be clear over here that the HCl plus pepsinogen, HCl and pepsinogen combined together, they make pepsinogen. They make pepsin. Pepsin is the active form of Pepsin is the active form of it. This is the active form of pepsinogen. And this pepsin is responsible for the digestion or breaking down of protein, polypeptide chains. This is responsible for protein digestion, pepsin. So the HCl is responsible for the activation of pepsinogen into pepsin. The pepsin is not stored in the chief cell as such, because this pepsin by contact of pepsin with the wall of the blood with the wall of this chief cell, it can digest the chief cell. So that is why this pepsinogen is stored in the form of pepsinogen, not in the form of pepsin. This enzyme is not stored in the form of pepsin, because then if this enzyme is stored in the form of pepsin, then it will digest the wall of the chief cell. So this is stored in the form of pepsinogen. After secretion of pepsinogen from the chief cell and after secretion of HCl from the parietal cell, the HCl activate the pepsinogen to pepsin, and that pepsin goes to the gastric lumen. In the gastric lumen, it combine this pepsin combined with the food and in the protein part of the food, and digest that protein, convert that protein into small fragment that may be amino acid or a small polypeptide chain. Now other type of cell are also present in this gastric gland, around the gastric gland lumen. So other types of cells are G cells, D cells, EC cells, and ECL cells. G cell is responsible for the production of gastrin. Gastrin is actually a hormone which is secreted by G cell. G cells are present large number in these area, but generally the G cell is present in this diagram. You can see in this diagram over here in this area. In this area, the G cells are large in number, and in this fundus area, the parietal cell and the HCl, the chief cell are in large in number. This in this area, the G cell are large in number, and in this area, then the gastric gland lumen of this area, the parietal cell and chief cell are large in number. So in this diagram, you can also see that the G cells, the D cell, the G cell, the G cell is responsible for production of gastrin. And gastrin, what does gastrin do? Gastrin is not secreted in this lumen. Actually, the HCl is secreted to this lumen, the pepsinogen is secreted to this lumen, but the G cell do not secrete the gastrin to this lumen. The G cell secrete the gastrin on this side to the blood capillaries. On this side to the blood capillaries, it secrete the to the blood capillaries, directly to blood capillaries, and by absorption to the blood capillaries, it goes in the blood and activate the parietal cell to secrete HCl. The G cells is responsible for production of gastrin, and this gastrin is responsible for the activation of the parietal cell. This activates the parietal cell to secrete HCl. This is actually hormone. Gastrin is actually hormone, so hormone will not be secreted into the lumen. Hormone will be secreted to the blood vessel, and when it goes to the blood vessel, it will goes to the it will absorb into the blood vessel and come back to the parietal cell. It will only and only activate the parietal cell to secrete the HCl. Now the second one, the D cell is responsible for production of somatostatin. 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 Somatostatin is responsible for the. What is somatostatin responsible for? This is responsible for the inhibition of the parietal cell. Gastrin is responsible for the activation of parietal cell, and the somatostatin is responsible for the inhibition of what? Inhibition of parietal cells to secrete to secrete the HCl, the EC cell, enterochromaffin cell. Enterochromaffin cell is responsible for production of serotonin. And the enterochromaffin-like cell ECL, enterochromaffin-like cell, is responsible for the production of histamine. EC and ECL, enterochromaffin enterochromaffin and enterochromaffin-like cell. L mean like. So these are paracrine cells. Both of these are paracrine cell, and these paracrine cell are responsible for the stimulation of the parietal cells. These stimulate the parietal cell. These are always located in the proximity of the parietal cell. These are the EC cell and ECL cell are located in the proximity of the parietal cell. So the ECL cell is responsible for there are some type of receptor that is called histaminic receptor, which are present on the parietal cell, and when the ECL cell secrete the histamine, that histamine combined with the receptor on the parietal cell, histaminic receptor of parietal cell, which lead to activation of parietal cell to secrete the HCl, while the serotonin is this is also a type of paracrine cell. This serotonin is also responsible for the this is also responsible for the activation of parietal cell. This is also some portion of serotonin is also absorbed into the blood vessel. We will learn about this in the class. Now the next one. Okay, this was all about the gastric gland. All of these are gastric glands, and these gastric glands secrete the various fluid which are responsible for various function. So when the HCl is secreted over here, this HCl goes into some of HCl combined with the pepsinogen and activate that pepsinogen, and some of the HCl goes to the gastric lumen and combine with the food, where it decrease the pH, it make the pH acidic, and which lead to the softening of food. So the stomach is also responsible for the conversion of food bolus into chyme. The food is converted into chyme. Semi-liquid, that is semi-solid food. So this was all about the function of stomach. In the next lecture we will learn further.